Thank you, Secretary Yasay. At this point, United States Secretary of State, the Honorable John F. Kerry, will give his opening statement.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Foreign Secretary, June, thank you very, very much for your welcome here. A very, very warm welcome. And I'm really happy to be back in Manila, back in the Philippines, a place that I've traveled to many times through the years. And I'm particularly glad to be here and honored to be the first Foreign Secretary, Foreign Minister that you've received. It's a privilege, and I look forward to meeting with the President. Being here so soon after the election and remembering the journey of many years, I commented to one of my staff people today that it brought back a lot of the memories of the early days when I first came here back in 1986. It's hard for me to believe that it is 3 decades ago, but in 1986, as a young senator, I joined an international effort to monitor the snap election that had been called here by President Marcos. And I traveled all around this beautiful country during those period of time. And everywhere I went, particularly when I went on election day, I flew by helicopter all the way down to Mindanao and stopped in various places in between. And I saw people standing in long lines in the hot sun, very hot day. They were standing by the thousands, waiting long hours to be able to vote, and literally doing their part to make democracy work. I can't tell you how impressed I was. And I went back to the United States Senate and I talked about the courage and the determination of the people of the Philippines to make their democracy work. I still remember the yellow shirts, the pro-democracy banners, and I look forever at people who vote, and I don't think I've ever seen the kind of enthusiasm and hope that people expressed with men and women participating in an election for the first time, a real election. The courage of that moment displayed by the people of the Philippines inspired people all across the globe. And it helped to spark an historic movement towards democracy that was felt by those people all around the world. Today, this nation is a model of democracy. The election that was held here in May was open and transparent. It offered a real choice, and the voters flocked to the polls. A turnout of more than 80%. That is exactly what democracy is all about. And I congratulate the Filipino people, and I very much look forward to congratulating President Duterte on his victory in person later today. My purpose in coming to Manila today is to underscore the value that the United States places on the alliance and the true friendship and relationship that we have with the people of this country. The U.S.-Filipino relationship has absolutely withstood the test of time, and it is clearly one of our most important in the Asia-Pacific. Foreign Secretary Yasay was in Vientiane with me this week for the ASEAN Regional Forum and the East Asia Summit. And this morning, he and I discussed a few of the key issues that came up during those ministerial meetings, including, obviously, the situation in the South China Sea. Now, I made it clear in Vientiane, and I make it clear here, as I have everywhere, that the United States we are not a claimant. And the United States does not take a position on the competing sovereignty claims to the land features of the South China Sea, but we do take a strong position on protecting the rights, the freedoms, and the lawful uses of air and sea space as defined by international law. We take a strong position in support of the rule of law. We have made clear that the decision of the arbitral tribunal convened under the UN Law of the Sea Convention is legally binding, and that we expect that the parties should comply with their obligations under law. Now, the rights of all countries under law should always be respected. That is what international law is about. That is what a rules-based order is about. At the same time, and I want to be equally clear about this, we urge all the claimants to exercise restraint and to work to reduce tensions. In our meeting today, I told the Foreign Secretary that we appreciate the very responsible and measured way that the Philippine government has responded to the decision. That's been important. In all my meetings in Vientiane, including with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, there was a consistent focus expressed by everybody, including the Chinese Foreign Minister, to turn the page on the past confrontations. And looking ahead, we hope and see a real opportunity for claimants to work together to constructively, peacefully manage and ultimately resolve their differences consistent with international law. We hope to see a process that will narrow the geographic scope of the maritime disputes, set standards for behavior in contested areas, lead to mutually acceptable solutions, perhaps even a series of confidence-building steps. We hope to see a diplomatic process between and among the claimants without coercion or the use or threat of force. And we look forward to working with all of the parties in order to advance the goals that I have just expressed. But we have a much broader agenda, my friends, than just the question of the South China Sea. We continue to work together with Philippines and with other countries in the region on law enforcement and on regional security and on combating transnational crimes like human trafficking. I made very clear that civil and human rights need to be protected even as we work to keep our societies safe. We also work together on countering violent extremism. Unfortunately, the Philippines is no stranger to the threat of terrorism. This nation has been managing these threats by groups like Abu Sayyaf for some period of time. And our nations work very, very closely together. Excuse me. Our nations work very closely together in order to counter those threats. In addition, the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, which June referred to, has been a cornerstone of security in the region for decades. And the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, the EDCA, is exactly what the Foreign Secretary has defined it as. It not only helps us to coordinate our efforts to maintain peace and stability in the region, but it also allows the United States to provide rapid assistance to the Philippines in the event of an emergency, because it enables us to be able to pre-position humanitarian relief supplies. I personally saw firsthand the importance of this disaster response when I visited Tacloban very soon after the devastation of Typhoon Haiyan. And I saw the unbelievable destruction that typhoon wreaked on that community. The buildings that were just wiped away, the water that came up to the airport tower, the mountains that were just completely shredded of these major trees. It underscored the importance not only of disaster response, but it also underscored the importance of our doing things about climate change so that we prevent this increased intensity of storms that is costing all of us so much money. Moving forward, the ECTA agreement will also expand opportunities for our militaries to train together, and that will help to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines in order to help them to be able to increase their effectiveness in responding to 21st century threats. Beyond our defense and our military partnership, the United States and the Philippines have expanding economic ties, which are very important in order to provide jobs for our people, raise the standard of living, increase the opportunity for health care and education, for people to be able to get better and better jobs. And last year, the economy here was one of the fastest growing in the world. And we fully support the government's efforts to make the country even more competitive in the global market by promoting free trade, protecting intellectual property rights, fighting corruption, and pursuing sustainable development. And even though the Philippines is not a member of the TPP, definitely the Philippines can benefit from the high standards that this agreement will set for the entire region. The bottom line is that the friendship between the United States and the Philippines is a deep friendship. It is deeper than just our economic and our defense cooperation. It is rooted in history. It is rooted in our support for democratic institutions and values. It is rooted in our people and the relationship of our people to each other. And as you know, we have a large Filipino-American community which contributes so much to the life of our country. Nearly 250,000 Americans live here in the Philippines, and roughly 4 million Filipinos live in the United States, which is further binding our two nations together through cultural and familial ties. To an extent, I think it's fair to say that we see a bit of each other in ourselves, and that's a good thing. And we understand that. Just as our nations have been linked historically, so too our future prosperity and our security will go hand in hand. So again, I am pleased to be here. I look forward to meeting with President Duterte. I speak for President Obama and the entire administration in saying that we look forward to working with President Duterte and with all of our friends in the Philippines for the benefit of both of our countries and for all of those countries in the region and in the world that can benefit from the strength of our relationship. Thank you.